Good morning. Thank you for making time to be here. I loved what we had to say in that last talk because it's not easy to carve out time in your busy schedule. If you're like me, I'm balancing Slacks and texts and emails and all the things. So to carve out days to focus on this important topic is really critical. We've been a friend of Missional AI at Masterworks for a number of years, and we really believe in the importance of this conversation. And when I say we believe in it, we have been part of it from the beginning. We have wanted to contribute ideas to the conference, but one thing I learned the hard way is to stand up in front of a group of geniuses and pretend to be a genius is a really bad idea, and to teach you guys anything about technology is a mistake. But one thing I can bring you a lot of insight on is what's going on in the world of Christian fundraising and generosity. Because what I find really intriguing, and the reason Masterworks has been so interested in missional AI, is we need to appropriate this type of technology to help solve the problems that many of the organizations that you either work for or support are facing. And it's exciting to be here. So thank you to Biblica, thank you to Joshua. I've known Joshua for a long time. Joshua, we met at a Masterworks client many years ago. And so it's fun to be able to be here and see how this conversation has matured. And thank you for letting a non-technical professional be part of this conversation. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about things that I know really well, which is about the state of fundraising. But first, before we get into that, I need to sort of get someone sort of opened the sci-fi conversation, and so I wanted to pose a question to you. What is your favorite Star Wars film? You know, it's interesting. You can know a lot about someone based on how old they are, what generation they're part of, and what they say in terms of their ranking of Star Wars movies. I'm a 4, 5, 6, and then this one, Rogue One, which is sort of a continuation of that gritty original Star Wars universe that at least I remember when I was a kid. But there's something about Rogue One that makes it really special. And I think you'll understand what I mean. The thing that endears me to this film, it's not just the gripping story of how the Death Star was made. It's not just the human drama and them embracing each other as the explosion rolls over on the beach. Sorry, spoiler, they don't make it at the end of the film if you haven't seen it, but it's this. And I think it's really apropos. I believe that Rogue One has the single best klaxon of any sci-fi movie out there. I love that sound. From the moment I saw the first trailer, I love it, and so it plays in my head a lot, especially when something's going crazy. And so what I'm going to talk about at the beginning of our conversation is about a crisis. And that sound is the one that goes off in my head when I talk to the CEOs of many of the organizations you serve and work for or that you give to. There is a major crisis in Christian fundraising. And it's easy for someone who works in the industry to describe it, but as a Christian person who feels called to this work and not just working in the work, there is a fundamental concern here that those of us who are faithful Christians who are wanting to serve the capital C church have to take seriously. And the crisis is multifaceted, and I want to walk you through some of the dimensions of it. We're experiencing a generational crisis. And so I don't know if you're aware of this. I love this number. It's so big it wouldn't fit on my slide, so I had to wrap the line. How many zeros? 12 zeros. There's an $84 trillion problem that we're about to face in Christian philanthropy. $84 trillion is going to be transferred generationally from boomers to Generation X and to millennials by 2045. But it looks like only a small fraction of that generational wealth is going to move to nonprofits. This is a major sea change because the lion's share of the donors to the organizations you know by name are over the age of 65. It's crazy to think about. I look at every one of Masterworks' clients' data in aggregate. The average age of a donor to one of the ministries we serve is not 45, it's not 55, it's 68 years old. It's crazy. Now, those of you who are wise are going, well, Masterworks, you send direct mail to old people, so obviously that you're a bit biased. Fair enough, and we're working on that. But it's absolutely true that the demography of donors is shifting, and those people are getting older. They're going to be with Jesus. The money that they've accumulated over a lifetime is being transferred from generation to generation, and it's not being sent in the direction of nonprofits. It's a major issue. The second issue is a generosity crisis. And there's been great books written on this topic, and it's absolutely true. We see this in the data that we look at on a daily basis. 43% is the number. Total donor retention across all of the clients we serve is less than 50%. What does that practically mean? It means that the average nonprofit has to replace half their donor file every year, which is crazy to think about. Imagine if you were a business and you lost half of your customers every single year and you had to replace them. This is a unique challenge for for-profit businesses, but for organizations that use the lion's share of their funds to do mission in the world, not to raise more money, this is a major problem. The second part of the crisis is that 72% of new donors, this comes from our own data, never make a second gift to an organization they give a first gift to, which is really amazing. That you work and spend all this money to make a person aware of your organization's existence, and just less than 30% of them ever recur and continue to give. There's also a leadership crisis. This is really funny. I love talking about this particular topic because I'm going through my own bit of a leadership transition. I was named president of Masterworks 2 years ago, and I've been walking through a succession process with my predecessor, the founder of Masterworks. He's a great man, but the funniest part about it is when you're going through a succession, never have the person who you're succeeding write a book about how to do it well. So my boss, the founder of Masterworks, decided this is the right time to write a book on how to do succession. So we're like a living case study of how it works. But there is a fundamental leadership crisis at the nonprofits we serve. I mean, this is amazing research that 75% of nonprofit executives plan to leave their roles within 5 years. That's amazing when you think about it. Also, 30% of nonprofits, this is based on research that we watch closely, are at risk of either merging or failing in the next decade due to generational shifts in leadership. Many of the women and men who have become synonymous with the organizations you know by name are reaching retirement age by God's grace. But who will fill the shoes? And what does that do for an organization's longevity? What does it do for their long-term financial support? These are all factors that are leading us to this crisis. Now, as an avocationally interested person who does have a MacBook Pro with an M whatever processor of sufficient neural engine count to be able to run LLMs locally, I'm avocationally interested. There is a technology crisis too, and increasingly not just a crisis, but a divide between the technical haves and the technical have-nots organizationally. There are many Christian organizations. I tease, when I joined Masterworks 8 years ago, I told Steve, who is the person I'm succeeding, that Masterworks was 10 years behind the industries, the commercial industries that I had led. Well, if that's true, organizations, nonprofits are much farther behind, and there's some very worrying trends. We do our research on this all the time because we believe helping organizations modernize their technology stacks is mission critical for them to be able to continue to do mission in the world. But here's some things that we have asked about. This is a good stat. This didn't used to be true when Masterworks started, but by God's grace, 96% of the ministries we poll use a database, a very basic thing. But believe it or not, there are still some ministries, a single-digit percentage, that actually keep their records in other file formats, flat files. So many organizations are beginning to put their data to work by storing it in contemporary ways. 24%, though, only 24% feel their data is well managed. Well, okay, so how many of us feel like our own data is well managed? It doesn't sound too bad, but 11% less than 24 feel like their data is helping them do their work. And that might mean the work of ministry or the work of fundraising or both. So yes, great. A bunch are starting to put their data in a place, good. They are starting to think about how to use it, okay, but they're not meaningfully using it. And it's interesting, Salesforce did some research and found that only 10% of nonprofits would count themselves as digitally mature. So we're dropping here in the percentages. 6% feel like they're using AI in a meaningful way. 1% have a data scientist on their team. There is a technology crisis that is truly radically affecting Christian ministries and the way that they generate the kind of support they need to survive. It's a crisis. It's a Rogue One level crisis. Again, that's the sound I hear in my head all the time, so I'll just let you soak in it. So I want to talk to you about why this is important to you. I believe sincerely, and everyone at Masterworks believes sincerely, that technology can help these problems be overcome. Nothing I've described is insurmountable. In fact, it's right down the middle of the fairway in terms of the things that the commercial space does with technology all the time. And in fact, I believe largely the ghettoization of Christian ministries and their lack of access to contemporary technology, because there's not really a market for-profit entities to develop the specialized solutions that ministries and nonprofits need, has created a lot of this problem. But I believe those of us who are passionate about technology and its right use and passionate about the kingdom, we can make a difference. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to show you 4 things that are big issues. Now, if you're an entrepreneur in the room or a funder, these are places where you could develop products that could really easily find a market. If you're looking for someone to partner with, you can come talk to me after my talk. But I'm going to give you 4 things that I think that those of us who are able to think critically using technology could do to make a big difference to help solve that crisis. Does that make sense? So far, everyone with me? I feel like just give me a nod, something. I'm a fast talker. I know this is a little different, and I could have gotten up and talked about first principles in AI or some such thing, but I felt like this is something you're not going to get from anyone else. In the trenches view of the existential threat to many of the ministries that you know by name or work for or give to. It is not a joke. It is real. I hate to be an alarmist, but again, that klaxon goes off in my head every morning when I wake up and pray for our clients. So I want to share a bit with you, not because I want you to be scared, but because I need your help. So here are 4 things you can help me with, or help all of the Big C Church with. The first and biggest problem of most Christian ministries is disorganized and untrustworthy data. And it is amazing the number of people who come to me and come to Masterworks desperately wanting to figure out how their data works. Most ministries don't trust their data, and because they don't trust it, they don't use it. So you will find labyrinthine, massive data constructs within the data environments of ministries. They've invested a lot of money over a lot of time to try to figure this problem out. They have layer upon layer of organized and reorganized and double classified information. It's wild to look at the data environments of most ministries. It's so confusing that it's not useful. So oftentimes people either ignore it or they remake it, so then you end up with data that's duplicated, triplicated, and massively redundant and massively in conflict with itself. That bad data leads to frustrated internal teams and broken trust with donors. It is absolutely the case that the reason it said 75% of nonprofit executives leave, but the average life cycle of someone Masterworks works with on the ground at a nonprofit is probably 2 years before they get so frustrated and burnt out that working anywhere else feels better because they have the information they need to do their jobs. They have CEOs in their ears yelling at them about how we need to advance and modernize, but the data that's required to do that is inaccessible, disorganized, chaotic. Bad data limits the innovative things that organizations could be doing with their data. And so if you were to think about it, I'll just give you a quick example. We work with a large ministry, like large, not the largest, but large. In the world of Christian fundraising and Christian philanthropy, you can kind of, when you start to categorize organizations by size, the names start to get obvious, so I'll try to obfuscate it. The dream in their hearts. When I met this organization, they were one of the first clients I met with. I flew down to meet with them. The dream in their heart was that when someone comes to their website, they would get a different experience based on the type of donor that they were. This organization serves all sorts of different constituencies, families and moms and all sorts of different groups. So when you come to their website, they wanted to be able to have a different homepage banner show up, different navigation items to appear, stuff that we as marketers think is really critical to demonstrate concern for the visitor, stuff that Nike gets right all the time, but ministries wish they could get right some of the time. And what's amazing about it is there are so many endemic technology solutions in the fundraising space. There are literally CRMs built for the Christian marketplace, and many of them are robust, but they're legacy approaches. They're not cloud-driven in a lot of ways, all sorts of stuff like that. So this particular organization did what many are doing and migrate from one of these endemic platforms to a contemporary cloud-based CRM that you would know by name. And they began a process that literally took them 3 years and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to migrate them from CRM A to Salesforce so that they could be able to do these basic things. But after all of that time and all of that money, their data was so complicated that Salesforce itself, the SI that they had hired, said, we cannot migrate your crazy data from your environment into Salesforce without a fundamental scrub. We need to basically start over. And this dream that they had of doing on-page personalization was completely stymied. One of the main reasons they were moving from their legacy platform to Salesforce was to be able to do this, and their own data prevented them and blocked them from being able to realize that vision. So all of us know, who are data scientists, that quality, well-homogenized, clean data hygiene is so critical. And so this is what we at Masterworks tell all of our clients now, that all of the miracles of data science that they're reading about, all the generative AI they wish they could use, all the on-page automation and personalization they wish they had, all of the optimization that they want to be able to do, all of it's predicated on having well-stewarded data. So we tell our clients these 4 things, and I would encourage you to take these 4 things down, because as leaders within your organizations, you have an opportunity to champion things like this. These are 4 basic maxims that we share with non-technical people that can help them begin to think rightly about this first problem of disorganized data. Get your data organized, keep your data organized, use your data every day, and help your data help you. We tell our clients that we work with those 4 things all the time. They sound very, very basic, but short of radical, universal, open source schemas for nonprofit fundraising data, which we are trying to popularize and implement and standardize, this approach, those simple 4 things have been really helpful to people who don't think about data as an asset. They think of data as sort of an artifact of process, a byproduct of process. So for them to move from a byproduct to an asset mentality and think about something that needs to be stewarded and cared for, it's actually opened up a lot of the possibilities. So we, those of us who are technologists, must help ministries improve their people, their financial, and their event data hygiene so that we can do amazing things with it. That's the big opportunity. If you're looking for a data set, I love when someone said Biblica has a ton of data sets in corpuses for translation. If you want ultra fun time series data to do predictive, algorithmic, generative work with, the nonprofit data set is really interesting. And so help me help these nonprofits get their data lives in order so that we can take all that well-curated data and do interesting modeling with it. One other fun story here before I move on to the second thing. Magical data lake. A good friend of mine who might be in the room, I don't know if he is, I will not name him, but his organization is, like many nonprofits, large, effective, doing great ministry in the world. They have had, over the course of decades, a deep commitment to technology, but they had a huge data problem. They had massive data siloing. The problem was so bad that the man who's in this room literally wrote from scratch a custom CRM for this ministry, if you can imagine that, in the hopes that it would clean up the data so that they could begin to do the kinds of things they had hoped to be able to do. Well, that process, They did that. He actually led a project to write the CRM, but of course there were adoption problems and all the things that go with it. And just in the last 24 months, really 12 months, they have finally moved all their data out of these silos into a common unified data lake, which is super exciting. And so I'm proud to say that together with this ministry, for the first time ever, after years and years of laboring under that burden of bad data, Masterworks was able to partner with them to develop a very effective, proven, tested, and now in use model to help them predict which of the donors that are on their file are most likely to churn. Things that for the e-commerce industry are very basic churn modeling, but now for the first time in a ministry context, using their donor data that this man, through a lot of sweat and tears, has really worked on, brought that data into a clean environment. Now they're solving that churn problem using machine learning and artificial intelligence. Really exciting. Second thing you can help me with, insufficient analysis. Now, in the real world, there are panoply of business intelligence tools that can be thrown at business problems. You know, we know them all by name, from your Tableaus to your Lookers to your Sisenses and everything in between. I'm sure it'll go down the list of BI vendors. But in the Christian space, there are no good, consistent analytics. Ministries don't know what's working or why. Fundraising decisions are based on gut instinct and not on data. Ministries focused on cost per dollar raised instead of long-term donor value. And all of that stuff, that guessing and that focus on short-term metrics, the wrong metrics, leads to over-optimization and a fear of trying new things. All of this is because there is not a mature business intelligence stack that talks in the language of ministry. And if there is anything like that, sadly, it's been created by companies like mine to do vendor or agency lock-in for these ministries. It's really sad. There's just not quality business intelligence or analysis tools out there. And so I'll just tell you a very brief story here. I got a call from a CEO just the other day. It was in hushed tones late at night. It was a blocked number, so I didn't know who it was when I answered. And I said, hey, or hello, whatever I said. And like almost in a whisper, I hear a voice on the other line. It says, Bryan, it's me. I'm like, it's me? Who is this? It was the CEO of one of Masterworks' clients. And this client had decided to fire Masterworks about 2 months beforehand. So we, as a vendor partner for our customers, provide them all sorts of our custom business intelligence, stuff like that. And they had shut it all off about 30 days before. So in whisper tones, he's like, Bryan, I'm flying blind. I need your help, but I can't tell anyone at the ministry that I'm calling you. Can you send me those reports? And can you give me access to the business intelligence so I can figure out what I'm doing in my ministry? The reason I tell you that story isn't to say Masterworks' BI is in any way particularly great, but to tell you that without business intelligence, these ministry leaders are trying to make deep financial decisions with millions of dollars to spend without the basic business intelligence tools that every other business has built into Salesforce. Because you can't just plug in the Salesforce reporting because it doesn't know what donors are. It doesn't know what long-term value is. It doesn't think about ministry impact. It doesn't think about the terminology of ministry. So I believe that we as a group have an opportunity to build smarter measurement tools and accessible analytics and to democratize those standards so that there's no vendor lock-in for organizations like ours, so that the ministries that we are all part of or serve or give to have the confidence to take bigger gospel risks. We try this. We have our own business intelligence platform. It's not open source, though. You only can get at it if you're a Masterworks client. I would love to find a way to take what we've learned, the schemas that we've developed, and share them with the world to make that an open standard, because it would really help a lot of ministries. Not help them choose to work with my company, but help them choose to spend money wisely. Third thing, and quickly, impersonal donor experiences. This is a massive problem. You experience this if you've ever given to a Christian organization. You get hammered with all sorts of undifferentiated communication all the time. It's a big problem. Donors receive generic messages, and not just donors, but potential donors. Generic message with little connection to their interest or their engagement history. And why? Because the human cost of segmenting it any better or creating content for these different constituencies has been too high for most ministries. What does that lead to? No onboarding, no relational journey. You become a transaction. You just become an ATM to many of these ministries. And frankly, I think it makes us look lazy and doesn't necessarily reflect the character of Christ. So I believe we have an opportunity as technologists to help ministries activate their data and use it to be more Christ-like, namely, to stop treating people, or to start treating people like people and stop treating them like buckets or segments or cohorts. I think this is really critical. One way we do that, and again, this isn't a sales pitch, because not a sales pitch, but one way we do that at Masterworks, we use data to do an approach to digital media marketing called Always On. Long and short is we look at where people are actually at in their life cycle of relationship with an organization, and we bucket it, not thinking of it as a marketing funnel that drives people to a conversion action, but a relationship that builds upward towards a lifelong commitment to partnering with an organization through attract, engage, convert, and cultivate. This all is predicated on good data hygiene, though. Without data ingested from their environments that's put through normalization, schematization, and then activation, and then moved into platforms, it doesn't work. Again, always on, treating people the way they should be treated requires good data hygiene. But once we do that, we can start to do neat things like this. We start to unlock the power of multiplication and generativeness. And a lot of this generativeness is not generative AI. This is just being able to, when you can use the data to show people who they are and where they are online, you start to provide dynamic experiences in context. You start to make things that are more beautiful and specific to the people you're talking to. The data being different and understood allows you to take more risk in being bolder in how you talk to specific groups of people as opposed to talking to everyone like a monolith. And we love that. And this is a use of Gen AI inside of Masterworks. It's tragic how few dollars of budgets are spent talking to anyone other than the classic up-the-gut white evangelical in the United States. So we use Gen AI to communicate with at least this constituency. We translate algorithmically, and then we have native speakers validate. But it's been really powerful for us to be able to open the aperture of how organizations can communicate, but the data has to tell us what language the people want to speak in. So when that's there, it lets that happen. The fourth and final thing in the last 2 minutes of my time, the thing you can help me with, and it's the most critical, actually I'll leave it for the end, is that almost all the organizations that Masterworks serve have what I would call a fatal allergy to marketing. And we as technologists can really help with this. What do I mean by the fatal allergy? Is most fear radical donor backlash that prevents them from spending to grow. Like every other organization you know of by name, they spend money to make money. They spend money to get their name out into the world. And most ministries have a false theology, in my view, and again, we could have that discussion in the breakout in a little bit of whether marketing, thinking of marketing as overhead instead of investment is theologically sound. I would argue that we have a duty to put the money to work to responsibly engage the world. Most organizations don't, and the reason they don't is they don't trust the data. And that's what I want to say. They do not grok digital attribution. So the last thing I want to leave you with is I need your help, because we live, like we talked about, a crisis. There's a paradigm crisis inside every one of the ministries that you know. There's a handful that aren't this way, but the vast majority are. We have a Newtonian versus quantum physics problem when it comes to marketing. We have some people inside of organizations who are Newtonian in their thinking that believe I spend $1, I should be able to trace it back to the bank account so I can confirm that God's money was put to good use through a concrete and demonstrable ROI. And then you have people who are on the quantum side of things, which says, well, it's not understandable. When you try to measure it in this way, you violate it. And the way you think about measurement has to be intrinsically different for a new context. In our reality, both are true. And we've tried to shoot the gap by inviting people into a multimodal understanding of how to measure digital marketing. But frankly, this isn't working either. what we've done is basically say, there's no way to know exactly what's right or wrong, but if you look at it 3 different ways at the same time and hold your nose, you can kind of figure out what you're supposed to do. What I want to invite you into is to helping me build and helping this industry build effective attribution modeling that helps organizations stop being so scared of spending money on things that they can't measure. Because the reason that many of the someone's clapping. Thank you, that's cool. Feel me there. That's really important because we have to be able to put the money that God's entrusted to us to use so that we can communicate with the world, and not every dollar we spend, we will see a concrete and demonstrable immediate return, but that doesn't mean it's not money well spent. We need to prove that. We prove it all the time. My favorite thing for the Newtonian physicists that are in our client base is typically what happens is they say, we're going to spend money communicating with the world, and they do it for a while, and they can't find a spot in their antiquated CRM where the money that they spend balances the money that they made. And so they pull the plug on this initiative. What they haven't noticed is that their site traffic has gone up by a factor of 20, that their number of people engaging with their content is growing radically. The people who are sharing and liking them, their reputation is growing. Their online revenue is generally growing, but not in a way that's directly attributable to the money that we spent through some sort of antiquated measurement system. And so we turn it off. They typically tell us to. And my favorite phone call to get is the one that comes about 60 days later when they say, what did you do to our website? And I say, what do you mean? What did I do to your website? I didn't sabotage your website. They said, all this traffic is dried up. All the money we were making is gone. I know we said we couldn't prove it, so we needed to stop it. But what happened? What did you do? And I said, all that happened was we turned off the interest that your marketing was generating. And so we need to help ministries understand that there's a massive opportunity, and not just an opportunity, but a need to communicate with a world that doesn't know oftentimes about the important things that we're doing in Jesus' name. So one last thing, just a small plug where we also need your help. We're trying to build, just like we heard about Glue's redemptive approach to AI, we're trying to build a redemptive approach to programmatic marketing. Right now, Google and the other walled gardens, Meta, et cetera, absolutely have a monopoly on digital marketing, spending, and advertising. We believe that there's a way that we can create an environment where Christians, people who want to connect with Christians can do so in a brand-safe, endemic environment. If this is something that interests you, I'd love to talk to you about it. We believe it's an imperative that will drive communication across Christendom, so we can talk more about that if you'd like. One little plug here. We also at Masterworks, our network is the exclusive representative of direct sold inventory on Bible Gateway. So while I was preparing for these last slides, I found a little ad. That's Star of Hope, Houston's largest rescue ministry that's taking the risk to communicate online in front of people who are searching the Bible so that they might find a way to generate more support for the life-saving work they're doing in Houston. So is it a crisis? No klaxon this time, sorry. Yeah, it is, but I believe that we can help. Technology can help, and together we can do something about it. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.